Alrighty, we have started recording and we'll just go ahead and start out with some intros here. Um, Hi everybody, I'm Diego Lopez with Northern Colorado Clean Cities. I'm the Executive Director. We help fleets, consumers, and businesses adopt alternative fuels and electric vehicles. And today we'll be speaking with the City of Loveland and a little bit about their electric vehicle charging station project. So first, some intros. We'll go around the room and introduce yourselves.
I'm Paul Foreman. I'm the Facilities Coordinator, City of Loveland.
Gus Brown, the Fleet Manager for the Public Works Fleet Department.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and telling us a little bit more about your project. Tell us about your project. What have you guys done? What's your experience like with electric vehicles? Why are we here today? What have you all just accomplished today, or what have you all just installed? Paul, why don't you go first? Yeah, what is your experience like with electric vehicles?
Well, the latest project that we just completed was installing 2 wall-mounted ChargePoint car chargers at the Foundry Parking Garage located in downtown Loveland. And I've also worked with Gus on installing several employee-only car chargers on City of Loveland property. So that's kind of my experience level with the car charging industry so far.
Yeah, about a year ago, we the fleet with Paul's assistance from facilities, we installed was it four units internally for our car share program. And granted, at that time we only had 2 electric vehicles, whereas the car shares we have probably about 15 vehicles. And that whole thing there was to really build the infrastructure for the future. So as cars come due for replacement, we have the opportunity to expand on the electric vehicles, and the equipment is there and it's in place and ready to go.
That's excellent. That's excellent to hear. Yeah, your experience with electric vehicles is quite interesting, and this new project sounds like something that a lot of fleet managers are quite interested in. I know that there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of pushes out there, a lot of efforts out there for the expansion of electric vehicles and for fleets to transition to electric vehicles. So maybe first, Paul, give me some more information about maybe the first steps of that construction, or what was the catalyst for bringing electric vehicles. I know you may have your own interests in electric vehicles, but yeah, what was the main reason for starting this project?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it is true. I do have a personal vested interest in sustainability, specifically when it comes to alternative fuels. That's something that's a passion of mine. That's something that I'm trying to bring to the City of Loveland through my daily activities and projects. But this particular project at the Foundry Parking Garage started really during the construction of the garage. The original design had was planned for 2 Type 3 chargers to be installed to serve that parking garage, and they can serve the hotel that was across the street and the local businesses around. There's also an apartment complex located 1 block from the parking garage. Unfortunately, those items were value engineered out of the final design of the project. And so beginning in February of 2019, members of the community started asking the City of Loveland when they could expect some car chargers to be placed inside there. So that's when we really started looking into what the best way was to get these car chargers installed. If we want to use Type 3s, with the original design, we want to go down to the Type 2s, things like that. And after, consulting with electrical engineers and different members of the community, we went with installing 2 Type 2 ChargePoint chargers. We did in this project design a sub panel that will hold for future expansion. So coming in 2021, we're going to be applying for grants and trying to expand those charging stations at the Foundry Parking Garage for sure.
Excellent. And so even like, so tell me a little bit more about even with those constraints, even with those constraints, I'm glad to hear that it was still a doable project. And even with those constraints, future proofing your project. Tell me a little bit about that. You know, was there a specific constraints during this type of construction? And, you know, what is something that, you know, maybe you would do prior, knowing that there was some, you know, constraints there?
I mean, the one thing that I would do prior is, I would definitely try to work to make it so any of these type of project, any chargers in future buildings, they don't get value engineered out of these projects. I think in the past, things like electric car charging, things that promote sustainability, they're the first ones to go. They're the first ones to be value engineered out of projects if funding becomes an issue. And I think that City of Loveland facilities managed, specifically Public Works, we're really looking towards making sustainability and these other kind of projects with car chargers and other things, we're making them more of a priority so they don't get value engineered out of the projects initially. The huge constraint that we experienced during this project was COVID-19. We were fully funded and ready to go in March of 2020. The pre-bid construction walkthrough was set the day after the governor issued the stay-at-home orders, and then a few days later, all funding was pulled due to economic concerns of the pandemic. So the constraints for this project were actually quite large, from the original design with the car chargers being value engineered out to the project being defunded. So I guess if I was going to look back, that's the thing I would try. I would say that would be the thing that we wanted to do, is just have these projects not have the car chargers be valued engineered out of the construction process.
And then also, you know, tell me a little bit more about, you know, the use and the application, you know, thinking about who's going to use it eventually. Did you have to do anything else special during this construction? Okay, so you're thinking that they're going to be there for 2 hours. Is there like a parking queue, or is there, you know, is there any other types of construction things that you thought of as you were thinking of the use case or the application?
Yeah, a lot of that came through with the pricing guidelines that we set for these chargers. I work closely with Gus and Christine Schroeder from Electrical Engineering and Water and Power. They currently have 4 charging sites throughout the city that they operate, and we worked with them to try to set our pricing guidelines. Obviously, at a parking garage right next to a hotel, apartment complex, and other businesses such as restaurants and coffee shops. We wanted to make sure people weren't monopolizing these car chargers, and we wanted to make sure we were getting people out into the community and out shopping and out, utilizing the restaurants and, the amenities that we have in Loveland. So we actually set our pricing guideline to encourage use only when you're charging, and try to get people in and out of those spaces so we can keep those spaces open for other members of the community coming in and utilizing downtown Loveland.
Awesome. And I'm assuming as well, this use case also took into account how much load or how much electricity you could bring to the system. Tell me a little bit about your construction site type of experience with utilities as well. Anything to look out for, or any help that they were able to bring as well?
I guess, can you rephrase that question? I'm kind of, what are you looking for?
Definitely. Yeah. What was the experience like working with the utilities with this project? Did they come in and have to, install any transformer or do any analysis or anything like that?
Yeah. So luckily for us, like I said, the parking garage was designed for car chargers. So we had the infrastructure in place as far as, large junction boxes, large pieces of large runs of conduit to reach these spots. The one thing we did do is we came off the main distribution panel and set another sub panel inside the garage, which is expandable and will let us install more chargers in the future.
Excellent. And then, future sites, if you are doing a brand new construction, I'm assuming, I'm hoping that there are going to be a lot less constraints, and you'd be ready for them. Are you getting ready for any new construction sites as well, or new charging stations for not only consumers? And maybe this is a question for Gus. Are you getting ready for any charging stations for your fleets? Yeah. So what is the next kind of 5 years look like for electric vehicle charging stations, beyond just this garage? Any other types of locations that are ideal in Loveland that you guys are looking for?
Yeah, I don't, I don't know if I can speak on behalf of the public sector, out there, and Paul may know more on that, or even our electric department, what their plans are. But, I mean, from a fleet standpoint, the industry's changing. Electric vans, electric vehicles, from medium duty to heavy duty, definitely in the transit, end of it. I mean, currently the city of Loveland is our next transition for alternative fuels is going to include CNG that's coming on board. And, it's just a matter of time. We're definitely looking down the road, what's that first, medium or heavy duty electric vehicle look like. So I can't say that we have the answer right now, but
Yeah.
definitely taking that into consideration. What's it going to be? So, yeah.
A lot can happen in 5 years. And if you already have these level 3 charging stations, it's really going to help with the adoption of EVs, not only for consumers, but also when and if these medium and heavy duty vehicles come out, and we're hoping that they do, meet all of the expectations. And so, going back to this project, and maybe even future projects, and the costs. What were the general costs, and how did you limit those costs? Uh, the charging station obviously was the largest one, but conduit, what other costs were there within this project?
Well, if I could go back to the earlier question, facilities management, City of Loveland is actually opening up the Northern Colorado Law Enforcement Training Center off of Boyd Lake Road in Loveland. And this is a collaborative effort between Fort Collins and Loveland to create a law enforcement training center that all of the municipalities in Northern Colorado can use for training purposes, classrooms. There's a state-of-the-art gun range being installed. And on that site, we did install a CT4000 car charger, and that's going to become part of the City of Loveland facilities management, stronghold with car chargers. The idea that's going to be a for-pay use. The idea there is you have people coming from around Northern Colorado. If they have, they're going to be able to utilize that charging station when they're accessing that site. So it's going to not be just for City of Loveland personnel. It'll be for the surrounding community as well.
That's really important. And I know that for police vehicles, there's just so many other stipulations. So we're hoping, we see more EVs within different types of police vehicles, and uses, and just different types of applications. And I'm glad we're all getting ready for that. And we're sharing on all of these resources. That's what I also like about charging stations is that it's you're buying a piece of equipment, and it has so many multiple uses for so many different people.
And then also to touch on that point, Public Works, City of Loveland Public Works just adopted a strategic plan. And one of the large pieces of that puzzle is sustainability, and, offering the public and not only our customers, but our employees, the ability to use alternative fuels. So that's something that, going forward, 2021, 22 and beyond, Public Works in general is going to be looking really hard at providing alternative fuels for customers and employees.
Right.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, and that just gives people more confidence in this technology, and this is fantastic. And I'm sure that this also, what I hope is in terms of resiliency. What we've seen with the Granby fires as well. We want more options for energy, for transportation, and that increases our resiliency. So we hope to just increase those options, just like you said, give those people more options. So going back to, your main project, this is a huge endeavor, and this is a multi-scale project spanning multiple years. So how do you keep down costs? What were the general costs for this type of project, and how are you going to, put down these costs? Are you using incentives, things like that?
The main way that we kept costs down was utilizing Charge Ahead Colorado. Gus Brown had utilized them to install car chargers for City of Loveland employees, and he let me know, and I believe it was in April of 2020, after funding had been pulled for this specific project, that Charge Ahead Colorado was an option. I applied for the grant, and I believe it was in September of 2020. We were approved, and a deadline was set for December 31st of 2020. And then the other thing that really helped, like we talked about, is the original construction process had the conduit already installed, the junction boxes, and the large main distribution panel was already set up for these car chargers. All we really had to do was core drill through a concrete wall, set another sub panel, and run some wire to the car chargers to get it going. And I just talked to Christine Arnold up in finance. She's our one of our contract administrators for grant funding, and Charge Ahead Colorado just sent the check in today, and that has already been reimbursed back into the Foundry car charging account.
So it is successful. It works, and you actually have gotten your funding back. That's the most important part.
Yeah, the reporting was very easy. Everyone over there at the state was really easy to work with. Any questions you had, they were right there to answer them, and make sure that you got your reimbursement check.
And I'll review in this video as well for those who don't know, the Charge Ahead Colorado grant funds level 2 charging stations, $9,000, and level 3 charging stations, $35,000 to $50,000, depending on the load. And so, there are tons of resources. Just like you said, the energy office is open in three different rounds. So in September, January, and sometime in March or April, there will be this opportunity for municipalities, cities, businesses, private fleets as well, to take advantage of that great resource. And I know you guys don't use tax credits, but I know that there are also some tax credits. So use Northern Colorado Clean Cities, use Colorado Energy Office as a resource to help lower those costs. Also tell me a little bit about the bid process. Did you compare costs with different bids and quotes? How was that process like?
Yeah. This project followed all the administrative regulations that the City of Loveland has, for construction project. We did a pre-bid walkthrough. The project was advertised. The scope of work was advertised in the local paper for 2 weeks. At the pre-bid walkthrough, we had 10 contractors show up. The original bid was somewhere around $45,000 to $50,000, and bids came in much lower than that. We had 2 contractors that basically came in and were competing for the job, and we did contractor interviews, reference checks. The city of Fort Collins was a huge help. With the reference checks, they recommended National Car Charging, who ended up completing this project for us. And National Car Charging, actually another great resources for anybody who's looking to get into EV chargers. Jim Burness is a fantastic rep. He knows everything there is to know about charge point chargers. And so when we awarded the contract to National Car Charging after contractor interviews and things like that, and the notice of award went out, and then the project deadline was set for the beginning of December. Inspection, we also went through, obviously Charge Ahead Colorado requires thorough inspection. So this project was fully inspected by City of Loveland building inspectors. And that was all finalized on December 11th of 2020. And then we put the car chargers online on the 13th of December.
Perfect. And then going back to, picking between those contractors, was there a specific reason, like this contractor helped me with networking, actually helped me with the reporting, they had a lot bigger network, or yeah, were there specific things that you looked for or sold you on a contractor?
It was just the interaction, and actually the thing that sold me on national car charging was the great recommendation that I got from the city of Fort Collins. National Car Charging had worked with them in 2019, installing, believe 20 to 25 car chargers in their parking garages, and their actual technical knowledge and expertise with ChargePoint is probably ahead of anybody else out, especially in Colorado right now.
Perfect, perfect. And so, what was the approval process like? You are the municipality, but what was there? So maybe we can even go through a little bit beforehand. So there was what was the entire kind of process like? You first saw definitely the grant, so that was a great thing, and the grant for Charge Ahead Colorado typically makes it to where you need to complete the project, the installation of the charger within 4 to 6 months. But what was the timeline like for at least these three? Maybe the utilities, bringing them in, bringing in the other experts, the other types of construction experts, and then maybe finally, was there any type of process through like the city council or any other type of city entity that you had to get approval from?
Well, luckily for us in this project, I had the design and the scope of work laid out ahead of time. I started working on this about the first quarter of 2019. Then I basically, the way that we handle this is we split it into two sections to spread out the money into 2 years. So 2019, I worked on the design. And then in 2020, we were going to implement the actual construction. So going into the first quarter of 2020, I already had the electrical design set up. I already had the scope of work lined out, the chargers picked out. The site was already verified as far as, cellular connection and, reporting back to ChargePoint. So we were lucky in that fact that we were able to spread out the funding between 2 years and go from there. And then after the funding was pulled due to the pandemic, I had to actually secure the funding, the reimbursement from Charge Ahead Colorado. And I went to the managing director of facilities, and proposed, a grant from the City of Loveland and added, and that the funds we were able to get from Charge Ahead Colorado enabled facilities to complete this project. Without the grant money from Charge Ahead Colorado, we would not have been able to complete it. We just did not have the capital funds to complete it, especially this year. We gave up over $1 million in capital funds to try to help the general fund in the City of Loveland. So without, the grant funding that we got from Charge Ahead Colorado, this project would not have been completed.
And so lastly, maybe that was a solution that you started so early. What can other communities do? You've mentioned, national car charging, looking at Colorado Energy Office for resources, us for resources, but are there other peers that you can rely on? Are there other things that communities can do to help with this process?
I relied heavily on Christine Schroeder. She's an electrical engineer over at Water and Power. They operate 4 car chargers throughout the city for pay use. And I relied heavily on Gus Brown. Fleet operations for the City of Loveland has been basically on the forefront of putting in car chargers for the city. Gus Brown was very involved in the sustainability transportation plan that really tries to bring alternative fuels for our customers and for our internal employees.
That's really important. Just the peers, peer-to-peer type of relations is so important. And I know that, there's also fleet pros that fleet managers can take advantage of. And they can get your point of view, your experience. They can get Tracy Oxner from Fort Collins. They can get so many other types of Boulder. You can get so many other perspectives on successful projects. You actually got your funding and you were successful with your project. So I'm sure that a lot of fleet managers would like to network and use that peer-to-peer network to increase their confidence that this project will work.
I'd also like to bring up the International Facilities Management Association is a great resource for that. It's an organization that promotes best practices and, allows people to engage in discussions just like this, like, how did you guys get started with electrical car charging? And then, people are just allowed to, collaborate and, give success stories, give, failure stories about how some of their projects went wrong and what they would have done differently. So that's also a great resource for anybody who's looking, to put it in a facility, private or public.
Excellent. And so, last question, kind of rounding, your project off, and you've already really mentioned your sustainability plan. Um, how do you see, this being a part of a network, or going into the future, it being a part of your sustainability plan? Did that, having a sustainability plan, does that help you see where charging stations will go into the future, or where development is going to go, or where are you looking towards the future, and how are you best planning that?
Yeah, I think the adoption of the strategic plan and adding sustainability as a large piece of that is probably going to be the number one factor of us moving forward. Now, especially in facilities, when we look at projects, one of the top two priorities is this project going to bring sustainability to our customers, to our internal employees. Is this a project where we're getting our money's worth? Does the actual overall dollar amount give us what we're actually looking for? So without that strategic plan being adopted, I don't know how successful we would be going forward. And then, as I mentioned before, the Northern Colorado Law Enforcement Training Center, we'll most likely be expanding the charging stations out there. Boundary Parking Garage, we're looking forward to adding more charging stations as well. And then, hopefully, promoting these, as the City of Loveland promoting these charging stations, will help, give private businesses a real push to start putting, charging stations in their parking lots and at their facilities as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that, with just having these projects actually get completed and have them being successful, I mean, that's a huge step, moving forward to, like I'm sure that Paul mentioned, it was that, I mean, this is part of their construction about, when they go to do new construction or do remodels, I mean, this is on the forefront now, because of these successful projects. So I think it's great.
Excellent. Yeah, you guys have a really great project here, and should be really proud of all of the investment that you guys have put in. And what I'm hoping is that this video and you guys will serve as a resource for others, and inspire others to also adopt electric vehicles, alternative fuels. These work, and they're in our communities now, and let's take advantage of them. And I appreciate all of your time. Is there anything else, that you guys want to highlight for your project?
No, I think it's just good to these projects are important. Alternative fuels moving forward is going to be part of our normal day. Definitely resources. Use anyone that is in an organization like Paul and I. There are a lot of networking opportunity, a lot of resources. You look at Northern Colorado Clean Cities, but I mean, even like you mentioned, Diego, Fleet Pros, and like Paul mentioned, the facilities network. I think the biggest is just actually getting to the point of actually being able to do one of these projects. When you initially look at the grant and what information you have to put in there, I mean, it's got a little bit of a fear factor to it. And it's like, oh, how am I going to do this? And, where am I going to get all this information? But I mean, that networking and organizations like yours are huge help on getting through that initial fear and actually having a successful project. So.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate all of our partners, Fleet Pros, and all of our stakeholders, especially you guys, the City of Loveland. You know, if we didn't have you guys, we would not have a project. So I appreciate you, Paul, also, you know, taking the lead and championing, you know, the electric vehicle charging stations and still including them, especially with the barrier of COVID. You know, now nobody has an excuse. I feel, you know, they can definitely, you know, adopt these charging stations without any issues. But I hope they use you guys as a resource and us as a resource as well. But I appreciate your guys' time and we'll end here. Thank you guys so much.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us out.